There comes a moment quiet, unannounced, often subtle yet overwhelming, when the veil of ordinary perception seems to shift. A small crack appears in the surface of reality, and through it pours a light so strange and so undeniable that everything you thought you knew about life rearranges itself. This moment is not necessarily born of great drama. It might rise in the middle of an ordinary afternoon, while you watch shadows bend across the floor, or as you stare into someone's eyes and suddenly sense an immeasurable depth behind them. It is the realization that the world you have been, living in the world of rushing schedules, of names and titles, of things you chase and fear, is, in many ways, an illusion. And once you realize this, truly realize it, you can never look at life the same way again. To call it an illusion is not to say that the world is false, or that matter itself doesn't exist. It is to say that the framework through which we interpret everything, the lattice of beliefs, fears, expectations, and desires that colors our perception, acts like a painted stage set. We mistake the painted backdrop for the entire cosmos, forgetting that beyond it stretches an infinite horizon of reality unimagined. This illusion is not sinister in itself. It is simply the nature of the human mind to create narratives, to carve simplicity out of mystery, to turn the infinite into the manageable. Yet, what imprisons us is the forgetting. We forget that we are playing roles, and instead we become trapped inside the story we ourselves are telling. Consider how often life feels like a chase for something just beyond your reach. The next promotion, the next possession, the next approval. Each achievement brings a temporary surge, like drinking water that quenches your thirst for only a moment before leaving you thirsty again. We are conditioned to believe that reality is nothing more than this cycle: effort, reward, decline, repeat. Yet the deeper truth, hidden in plain sight, that this treadmill is part of the illusion. The game is not about endlessly running, it is about realizing you are on a treadmill at all. Once you see the machinery beneath your own experience, you can choose whether to run, to step off, or to walk at your own pace. That choice, that freedom, only emerges once you pierce the veil. This unveiling carries both wonder and disorientation. Imagine living your whole life inside a house with painted windows. Through them you see landscapes that never change, convincing yourself this is all there is. Then, one day, a corner of the paint chips away, and you catch a glimpse of the real world beyond vast mountains, endless sky, rivers that shimmer under the sun. It is beautiful, yes, but also terrifying, because it means the comfort of your old certainty has dissolved. To see through the illusion is to confront both liberation and responsibility. The comfort of believing this is all there is falls away, and with it comes the daunting truth that your life is not fixed, not predetermined by the painted scenery, but open to dimensions you had never dared imagine. Philosophers, mystics, and seekers across ages have spoken of this awakening in different tongues. Some have called it enlightenment, others liberation, others simply seeing. The language differs, but the essence is the same. Reality is more than appearances, and human suffering often comes from confusing the shadow for the substance. Plato's allegory of the cave is perhaps the most famous image of this truth, chained to a wall, mistaking shadows for the world itself, until one breaks free and steps into the radiant daylight of reality. What Plato wrote thousands of years ago still strikes with a thunderous resonance today, because it is not a distant tale, it is our story, retold in each generation. Yet here is the paradox. To see through the illusion does not mean to reject the world, to abandon responsibilities, or to treat everything as meaningless. On the contrary, it can make life more vivid, more precious, more alive. When you realize the illusion, you also realize that behind it hums a greater reality that infuses everything with meaning. Suddenly the smallest things, the sound of rain against a window, the touch of a hand, the laughter of a child, become profound, because you are no longer asleep inside them. You are awake. You see not just the thing itself, but the infinite ground from which it arises. The illusion dissolves, and in its place, a deeper truth stands revealed, that life is not something happening to you but through you. The illusion has many layers. It disguises itself as permanence, though nothing in this world is permanent. It disguises itself as separation, though everything is intimately interwoven. It disguises itself as scarcity, though the well of being itself is infinite. Once you realize this, once the inner eye opens to the underlying unity, you can never again be satisfied with shadows. You begin to crave the sunlight, no matter how blinding, because you know it is real. This is not a one-time event but a lifelong unfolding. The first glimpse is often startling, even destabilizing, but with time it matures into a steady clarity. It is as though your eyes adjust to the brightness, and you begin to navigate the world with a new kind of vision. You still live in society, you still play roles, but you carry the quiet knowledge that these are masks, not your essence. You smile differently, love differently, even suffer differently, because you understand that beneath the shifting drama lies an unshakable truth. You are more than the illusion you once mistook for reality. This introduction is only a threshold, a first step into the labyrinth of ideas and experiences surrounding the phrase. Once you realize this, you'll see through the entire illusion. As we move forward, we will peel back its layers, explore the themes that define it, weave stories that illuminate it, and consider how such insight can be lived in the messy, beautiful, challenging texture of daily life. But before we venture deeper, it is important to pause here, at the gates of realization, and feel the gravity of what it means. To see through the illusion is not to escape life, but to engage it with a clarity that was once hidden. It is the beginning of freedom, and perhaps the true meaning of awakening. To explore the essence of once you realize this, you'll see through the entire illusion. We must step more deliberately into the architecture of what this realization actually involves. The phrase itself is like a key, small, almost inconspicuous, but capable of opening an immense door to a dimension of truth that most never glimpse. Behind that door lies the recognition that much of what binds us, frightens us, or drives us is not reality itself, but a construct, a woven tapestry of beliefs, stories, and perceptions that we inherited, absorbed, and unconsciously agreed to live by. To understand this is to uncover the foundational patterns of human experience, the core illusions and the truths that shine beneath them. At the heart of the illusion lies the belief in separation. From the earliest days, we are taught to see ourselves as distinct individuals, small units isolated from the vastness around us. We are given a name, and that name becomes a wall. We are told where we belong and where we do not, and so invisible borders are drawn in our hearts and minds. The illusion whispers, you are this and not that. You belong here and not there. Yet beneath this conditioning, every breath we take reveals another truth, that the air that fills our lungs was moments ago inside the trees, and tomorrow it may be part of another being. The very boundary between self and other begins to blur when we look closely, and the realization dawns that separation is more story than fact. Once this is seen, the illusion falters. Another layer of the illusion is permanence. We cling to objects, people, even identities, as though they will endure forever, and when they inevitably change, we suffer. The illusion says, hold tightly, this will last, this is solid. Yet everything in life is in flux. The body ages, seasons turn, mountains erode, stars collapse. The only constant is change, and yet the mind resists this truth with desperation. To see through the illusion of permanence is not to despair, but to awaken to the preciousness of each fleeting moment. The cherry blossom is beautiful precisely because it falls. The dawn is sacred because it will soon dissolve into day. When permanence is revealed as illusion, impermanence becomes a teacher, not an enemy. A third veil is the illusion of control. We imagine that with enough planning, force, or willpower, we can dictate the course of life entirely. We build schedules, stack savings, calculate futures, as if the universe itself will conform to our designs. The illusion tells us, you are the master of every outcome, but the truth is humbler and more profound. Life is a dance, not a machine, and our role is to move with it, to influence but not dominate, to co-create rather than command. Storms arrive without our consent, and blessings appear without our deserving. To see through the illusion of control is to relax into participation with the flow of existence. To accept uncertainty is the very soil in which wonder grows. Then, there is the illusion of scarcity, perhaps the most pervasive of all. The world teaches us to believe there is not enough time, love, success, money, worthiness. We compete, we grasp, we measure ourselves against others, imagining life as a zero-sum game where one's gain is another's loss. But beneath the illusion of scarcity lies the truth of abundance. Not abundance in the shallow sense of endless possessions, but abundance as the sheer fact of existence itself. The sun rises without running out of light. The ocean does not run dry, love shed does not diminish but multiplies. The deeper reality is one of overflowing potential, but to see it, we must peel away the veil of fear that insists on lack. Each of these illusions, separation, permanence, control, scarcity, a world that feels convincing, even oppressive, together they weave the net that entangles human consciousness. Yet once the thread of realization is pulled, the entire fabric begins to unravel. The recognition does not come as an intellectual conclusion, but as a lived seeing, a shift in perception, so total that the world seems reborn. The bird in the tree is not just a bird, but a manifestation of the same life that pulses in your veins. The loss of something dear does not annihilate meaning, but invites you to experience the fluidity of existence more deeply. The chaos of life does not crush you, but opens a space where surrender becomes freedom, and the fear of not having enough dissolves into gratitude for the immeasurable wealth already present in each breath, each moment. There is also the illusion of identity, subtler but deeply entrenched. We believe we are the stories we tell about ourselves, our failures, our victories, our roles as parent, worker, dreamer, survivor. These stories can be empowering, but they can also be cages. They define us, but they also confine us. Beneath the illusion of identity lies a deeper self, fluid, luminous, untouched by the labels that society insists upon. This self is not confined by race, gender, career, or history. It is the ground of awareness itself, the silent witness to every shifting scene of life. To realize this is to see that you are more than the story, more than the mask, more than the illusion. And so, the core themes converge: separation versus unity, permanence versus impermanence, control versus flow, scarcity versus abundance, identity versus essence. Each duality represents a doorway through which illusion can be pierced. To see through one is to glimpse the truth behind them. All that life is a mystery too vast to be contained by human constructs, and that awakening is less about acquiring new knowledge than shedding the blinders that prevent us from seeing what has always been here. What makes this realization so transformative is that it reshapes not only how we perceive reality, but how we live within it. When you no longer cling to permanence, you cherish the moment. When you no longer believe in separation, you love without walls. When you no longer demand control, you dance with life rather than wrestle it. When you no longer fear scarcity, you give freely and receive with gratitude. The illusions dissolve, and in their place, a truer vision of life arises, one that is more luminous, more compassionate, more free. This is the essence of seeing through the illusion. It is not the end of the journey, but the beginning of a profound shift. To understand the core concepts is to hold the map in your hands. Yet to truly live this truth requires more than maps. It requires stories, metaphors, and symbolic narratives that sink beyond the intellect into the marrow of the soul. That is where we must turn next, into the myths and allegories that reveal, through symbols, the living truth of piercing the illusion. The truths hidden behind life's illusions are often too vast, too subtle, to be grasped by reason alone. They require a language older than logic, one that speaks directly to the imagination, to the heart, to the soul's memory of what it has always known. This language is the language of story, myth, and symbol. Through allegory, the ineffable becomes approachable, the invisible takes on form, and we find ourselves guided not by abstract principles but by living metaphors that shimmer with meaning. To see through the illusion is to awaken into a story far greater than the one we believed ourselves to inhabit. Imagine a vast theater. The stage is set with elaborate scenery, mountains painted with careful detail, oceans suggested by rolling, blue cloth, castles that tower convincingly but are only wood and plaster. The actors play their roles with conviction, and the audience gasps, laughs, cries, carried away by the drama. But then, one curious soul walks backstage. He pulls aside the curtain and sees ropes, pulleys, lighting rigs. The illusion collapses. What once seemed an impregnable fortress is nothing but a facade, and what seemed like endless ocean is a trick of cloth and light. To return to the audience with this knowledge is to live differently. You still watch the play, perhaps even with greater appreciation, but you are no longer deceived. You see both the artistry and the truth at once. This theater is life itself. We are the actors, the audience, and sometimes the curious soul who stumbles behind the curtain, our roles: worker, parent, hero, failure, Friend, are costumes we put on, forgetting that behind them stands something more essential. The great illusion is not that the play exists, but that it is all there is. To see through it is to understand that while the stage is real in its own way, there is a reality beyond it, backstage, where the eternal waits. Another story. A child is born in a small village surrounded by high walls. From the first day, the elders tell the child, "These walls are the edge of the world. Beyond them lies nothing." The child grows, plays, dreams, all within this enclosure, never doubting the elders' wisdom. Yet one day, curiosity compels the child to climb. Scraped hands, trembling legs, but finally, the top is reached. What is revealed is staggering: rolling hills, vast skies, rivers, sparkling in the distance. The edge of the world was never the edge at all. The walls were not reality but boundary. The child realizes the elders weren't malicious, merely repeating the illusion they themselves believed. To descend again into the village is to see everything differently. The houses, the routines, the fears, they are still there, but they are not the whole story. Life is wider, more infinite than anyone dared to imagine. This parable speaks directly to us. The walls are our assumptions, the limits we inherit from culture, family, and history. This is what success looks like. This is what love means. This is who you are allowed to be. Yet beyond these walls lies a horizon we rarely glimpse. To climb the wall, to dare the struggle of awakening, is to see that the world is larger than the illusion we were given. And once seen, the illusion loses its grip. There is also the ancient story of the dreamer who cannot tell if he is awake. In a dream, he lives a full life. He loves, he fights, he grows old, he dies. At the moment of death, he awakens in his bed, startled to realize that none of it was real. But the thought gnaws at him: if one life can be a dream, how can he know that his waking life is not also a dream within a dream? The lesson is not to deny waking reality, but to recognize how thin the line is between perception and truth. What we take as absolute may itself be a layer of dream. To awaken is not necessarily to discard the dream, but to hold it lightly, to live with the awareness that there may always be deeper layers beneath what the eye can see. Symbols of awakening are everywhere. The lotus rising from muddy waters, untainted by the dirt that surrounds it. The butterfly, once a crawling caterpillar, dissolving in darkness before emerging into flight. The phoenix, consumed by fire, only to rise radiant from its own ashes. These images are not mere ornaments of poetry, they are mirrors of the soul's journey. To see through the illusion often feels like death to the old self, destruction of certainty, a burning of the world you once clung to. But from that death comes rebirth, a clearer vision, a freer life. Consider also the metaphor of the mirror. Most people see only their reflection and mistake it for who they are. They become obsessed with the image, pleasing it, protecting it, fearing its imperfection. Yet to step back and realize this is only a reflection, not the self, is to awaken. The mirror remains, the image remains, but you are no longer imprisoned by it. In the same way, the world of appearances is a mirror of a deeper reality. It is not false, but it is not the whole. To confuse it for the whole is to remain trapped. To recognize it as reflection is to step into freedom. All these stories converge on the same truth. The illusion is convincing, beautifully crafted, even useful in its way, but it is not ultimate. And awakening is not about fleeing the illusion, but about remembering it for what it is. The stage play, the village walls, the dream, the butterfly, the mirror, they remind us that life is layered, that beneath appearances, there hums an infinite depth. And perhaps the greatest narrative of all is not myth or parable, but your own. Each of us has moments when the veil lifts, standing before the ocean and feeling both small and infinite, hearing music that seems to come not from instruments but from the universe itself, holding a loved one and sensing the eternity in a fleeting embrace. These are not accidents. They are the soul's way of whispering, there is more. They are glimpses behind the curtain, cracks in the painted wall, hints of the reality that shines just beyond the illusion. To live with these symbols in our heart is to carry reminders of the truth. Even when daily life tries to drown us in appearances, they are anchors to the infinite, pointing us back to what matters, and they prepare us for the next step. How to take this vision, not just as metaphor or fleeting insight, but as a guide for how we live, choose, love, and act in the world. For if awakening remains only a poetic idea, it risks becoming another illusion. Its power lies in its integration, in shaping how we meet the raw texture of life. Realization, as profound and luminous as it may be, risks dissolving into abstraction if it is not brought into the fabric of daily life. To see through the illusion is not merely to entertain a lofty idea, but to allow it to alter the way we breathe, the way we speak, the way we choose, and the way we carry ourselves in the world. It is here, in the ordinary, that the extraordinary proves its worth. Otherwise, awakening becomes another decoration of the mind, another shiny concept to collect and admire from a distance. True integration demands that the clarity of seeing filters into how we live. The first ripple of integration often shows itself in how we respond to impermanence. Once you recognize that permanence is an illusion, you begin to hold each moment as though it were a flame, brilliant, warm, but fragile. You no longer rush through experiences in search of the next thing, because you know that every second is unrepeatable. The laughter of a child is not simply background noise, but a fleeting gift. A meal shared is not just nourishment, but communion. Even loss, though painful, becomes a kind of sacred teacher, reminding you of the preciousness of what remains. When impermanence is seen clearly, life itself takes on a heightened intensity, colors brighter, sounds fuller, emotions deeper, because nothing is dismissed as trivial. Every moment, seen rightly, is infinite in its own way. Integration also shifts how we approach control. Before realization, life often feels like a battlefield of resistance, a constant struggle to bend reality to our desires. But once you see the illusion of control, a new rhythm emerges. You begin to dance with life instead of wrestle it. You still make choices, set intentions, and move with purpose. But there is an underlying flexibility, a willingness to adapt, a trust in the unseen currents that shape events. Disappointments become less like crushing defeats and more like unexpected turns in the story. The storm that cancels your plans becomes a moment to rest, to redirect, to listen. Surrender is no longer weakness. It becomes wisdom, of recognizing that you are not the sole author of this vast script, but a co-creator with forces larger than yourself. Seeing through scarcity reshapes your relationship with giving and receiving. The illusion says, there is not enough, so guard what you have. But realization reveals abundance as the natural state. Abundance does not mean luxury or excess, but the recognition that life itself is overflowing, that love does not diminish when shared, that creativity multiplies the more it is expressed, that kindness spreads like fire from a single spark. When you see through scarcity, generosity no longer feels risky but inevitable. You give freely, not because you must, but because you see that holding back makes no sense when the well is endless. And paradoxically, in this openness, life gives back in ways you could never have engineered. Perhaps the most profound integration comes in relationships. Once the illusion of separation is pierced, you no longer see others as distant or foreign, but as reflections of the same life that animates you. Compassion arises naturally, not as a moral duty, but as recognition that joy is your joy, their suffering is your suffering. This realization reshapes conflict. Anger may still arise, but beneath it is a deeper current of connection, a refusal to dehumanize. Forgiveness becomes possible, not by excusing harm, but by seeing beyond the mask of illusion to the shared essence that binds us. Love ceases to be a transaction or a fragile bargain. It becomes a recognition of unity in disguise. Integration also touches identity. When you no longer believe the illusion that you are only your story, you live more lightly. Success and failure still come, but they do not define you. Praise and blame still reach your ears, but they do not pierce your essence. You begin to experiment, to take risks, to play, because you know that your worth does not hang on outcomes. The role you play, parent, friend, creator, seeker, is important, but it is not absolute. You can wear the costume fully, but you can also set it down when the curtain falls, resting in the deeper awareness that has always been untouched by the drama. This is freedom, not escape from life, but liberation within it. In practical terms, seeing through the illusion often simplifies life. You begin to notice what truly matters and let go of what does not. The endless chase for status, possessions, or validation loses its grip. You still enjoy things, still strive, but without desperation. Work becomes not only about achieving, but about expressing. Rest becomes not laziness, but an act of alignment. Conversations are no longer battles for dominance, but opportunities to share in the mystery together. Even the mundane, the washing of dishes, the walking down a street, shines differently when seen without the veil. Each act becomes a meditation, each breath a prayer. Yet integration is not without challenge. The world still runs on illusions, and to live awake within it can feel lonely, even disorienting. You may be misunderstood, your clarity mistaken for detachment, your surrender mistaken for passivity. But part of integration is learning to bridge both worlds, to live in the world of appearances without being fooled by it. To play the game while remembering it is a game. This requires balance, engaging fully, but lightly, loving deeply, but without clinging, striving passionately, but without illusion. The greatest implication of piercing the illusion is empowerment, not the brittle empowerment of ego, but the quiet empowerment of truth. You no longer wait for life to become something before you can be at peace. You no longer depend on external validation to confirm your worth. You no longer fear change as though it were annihilation. Instead, you live with a steady center, aware that while the scenery shifts, the ground beneath, the reality beyond illusion, remains unshaken. From this place, choices are made, not from fear but from clarity, not from lack but from fullness. And so, integration brings us to a different way of being, a way where awareness guides action, where compassion tempers strength, where humility balances vision. The illusions still swirl like mist across a valley, but they no longer obscure the mountain beneath. You live in the world, but not of it. You play your role, but without forgetting the stage. You participate fully in the dream, but with the eyes of one who knows it is a dream. This is the art of integration, to allow realization not to pull you away from life, but to saturate life with depth, presence, and freedom. When the veil begins to dissolve, life does not suddenly transform into perfection. The world still holds storms, losses, injustices, and uncertainty. But awakening is not about escaping reality, it is about seeing it without distortion. You no longer confuse the dream for the dreamer. You no longer mistake the shadows for the light. You recognize the illusion for what it is, a temporary stage where souls learn, evolve, and rediscover their true nature. Awakening is a shift in how you live, not where you live. You still walk the same streets, greet the same people, face the same challenges, yet everything feels different. A new clarity pulses in your being. You become aware that what once controlled you, fear, envy, anger, shame, are only passing clouds, unable to define the vast sky of your essence. The illusion loses its grip when you stop feeding it with unconscious belief. When you see through it, you understand that power never resided in the roles, the possessions, or the opinions of others. Power has always been in your perception, in your ability to create meaning, and in your connection to the infinite. Awakening does not demand that you abandon the world. Rather, it asks you to live within it consciously, to speak truth even when silence is easier, to love even when fear tempts you to close off, to forgive when resentment promises false strength, to act not from illusion but from alignment with something deeper. And in this way, you live beyond the illusion while still moving within it. Like an actor who remembers they are not the character, the drama continues, but it no longer owns you. You are free to play your part with grace, with wisdom, and with an unshakable inner calm. For once you realize this, once you truly see through the illusion, you discover the secret hidden in plain sight. You were never trapped, never small, never broken. You are always infinite. You are always free. And now, you know,